where the data is stored in the cloud and protected by the public cloud vendor, in this case, Google. So today we have these two offerings. One is free, which is 200 or 300 million users, and the other one is a paid service where we charge approximately 300 kroner a year per user, where we are not showing advertisement. That gives the user a choice. There's a few differences between the two products, etc. But basically, it's the same service. If you compare the size, we have around 30 million users on the paid edition. And if you take the high end of the free edition, 300. So 10%. So I think it pretty much keys up our relevancy of this discussion.
Okay, thank you. Then moving from how to make money, premium, advertising, then how to charge for it and get payments. Jonas?
Thank you very much. My name is Jonas Hedman. I'm from CBS, Copenhagen Business School, and the newly formed Department of IT Management. I haven't seen Jesper's presentation, or the moderator here of the panel haven't seen mine, so it might be a little bit of a surprise. We do take some kind of pride in try to be a little bit critical or reflective in some way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a long tail, which is a consequence of the digitalization that we see in the world. So please, next slide. Okay. The long tail, as we all know about, is about is about selling less of more, meaning that you can sell something, the 10th million book in a few copies, and make money off it. That's at least the assumption that. But we don't really know if, for instance, Amazon makes any money off their long tail. We assume that they may make money, but there are no evidence so far. They don't reveal any figures, at least. We know that to having a long tail, we also need to be online. We need to have a global business model in some way, have a huge reach, which I would say Google is a really fine example of. And also we have to have very low access or limited additional cost for each sold unit in some way. Okay. But we also have other business models that might function more common in Denmark. That's selling more of less. And one of the pictures here is from this year's Roskilde Festival, where we did some payment research, and queues are common at Roskilde. But in a way of to manage the queues, they limit the offerings. You can only buy one beer in the quantity of one beer or 5. That's how they managed it. We have another example of a Danish firm that sells few items but to a very high price, which is a totally different business model. But they can all add services that are digital in some way. And this creates some kind of issues for businesses. And meaning that you need to have products, you don't really sell services or not qualified services. Payment, I would say, is one service that you can sell on a long tail. Furthermore, you need to have a huge number of products, which Amazon is a very good example of, millions of books. You need to have millions of customers, which Google is another example of. And finally, that leads to consequences of how to manage all the payments. If you have 1 million customers or 10 million, you will have, hopefully, 10 millions of payments each day. So, on this payment area, we can see a tremendous activity in innovation from the banking industry as such. We can see right now Barclays in England has this Visa card that you can attach to your mobile phone. We can see the Oyster card in London with a huge success where you add services to your travel transport card, where you can buy additional things. We see the invention of SquareUp. How many knows what SquareUp is? It's a small dongle that you put on your iPhone and can swipe any credit card. The last figure is that there are 800,000 American merchants surpassing $2 billion on an annual basis, and it's increasing on a daily basis. However, in Denmark, we are slightly restricted to Dankort, and I'm excluded since I live in Sweden. So I have to take out cash, which is slightly irritating. We can also see Google is moving into the payment area. We see Facebook credits. And these are alternatives that you as a firm has to consider how to be able to take charge. And that also gives issues to how you're going to manage your products and so on, and what products you can sell on a long tail. Examples are books, music, films, movies. You can have payments as a long tail service as well. Calling time for mobile operators. But when you consider from a Danish perspective, are those the things that Danes are famous for? No, not to my experience. We are better in furniture and toys, or design of it in some way. Windmills are excellent, but are impossible to sell on a long tail. Hearing aids, excellent product, so on, as such. Food and beverages, you can't sell that on long tail. I tried to adopt that with Carlsberg, but it didn't work out at all. Clothing companies, pumps and thermostats, and drugs, the medical ones, of course. Those are the things that are the core essence of Danish industry, and maybe not that easy to convert into a long-tail business model. Furthermore, when it comes to dealing with customers, if you have a long tail, you do it on the net, you don't meet them, you don't have this interaction, whereas we in Denmark are very good in talking to people, solving customer problems, negotiating with them. But on the net, you don't do that. You have a standardized product that anyone could buy. And as a Swede, I found out the surprise, why are Danes so good in negotiation? It's like you have the oral exam. We don't have that in Sweden, for instance, and no part, or basically nowhere else in Europe. And that's a core competence of Denmark that needs to be converted into the digital era. So, before you go into a long tail, you have to answer these questions. And if you say yes, go for long tail. If not, remember there's an 80-20 rule. It works. 20% of your products will make 80% of your revenues. Build tight customer relationship by talking, knowing, understanding your customers face to face. And create products around platforms so you can get scale of your production, and finally provide them some financial support and make some extra money.
Okay, thank you.
That was my point.
Then I think we're going to open up to the floor to discuss what we just heard, but I think I would like to start with posing a couple of questions to the panel. First, to Jesper from Google. You explained how Google makes tons of money by providing a free service, which is not really free because you pay by your attention because you're served ads. But if you want to avoid those ads, or if not, maybe not avoiding them, but if you want to have a more professional service or enterprise service, you have to pay for it. In this very nice view of the Google world, do you see any things happening in the near or in the longer future that will actually provide you with obstacles? What are the perils or the pitfalls for that kind of strategy?
Good question. That was a tough one to start with. And this is not rehearsed, by the way. So I definitely see some the obvious pitfalls when you have a freemium and a premium offer is the customer will automatically, why should I be paying for this? What's the value add? You not showing me advertisement, is that enough to me to want to pay 300 kroner a year? That's an obvious obstacle to start with. What's in this? When you're used to getting something for free and suddenly you have to pay for it, there's a clear barrier. There's also a barrier in as a brand. When you as a brand are used to being perceived as something that is free, it's fast, it's easy, and it's free. Did I say that twice? And then your brand is associated with that notion, and suddenly you're charging. Now you must be evil. So Google's motto, "Don't be evil," does that no longer apply? Yes, it does. We just believe fundamentally that we're delivering a lot of value. Does the word support come into mind when you, as a user, you want access to support? Well, you're used to paying for that with all other services. So that's the usual way we explain, well, there's difference. Another area is also where we try to make the difference between the two business models even greater. So the free model and the paid model. The paid model is where we then start to add additional products, even more value, and some of those products are only offered to the paid users. So paid users get something that free users don't. Now we are committing treason. At least that's how it seems when you read the press sometimes, because it's how can you do that? You have to offer it for everybody, but there are costs associated with running these services. And that's also a cultural change inside a company to make that choice.
Jonas?
Oh, okay, some comments on, say, the viability of Google's business model, risk or something. And I think the risk is probably their size. And in particular, if Google would to increase in size much more, it might come some antitrust legislations. That has been, say, a North American path of controlling tremendously successful firms, historically at least. The other point is that there are no free lunches, not on the internet either. You either pay with your privacy or in cash. And I personally believe that we have seen the beginning of the end of privacy. There's no way that we're going to, with legislation, antitrust rules, to be able to control our privacy. We will become much more digitalized. That will enable either companies or nations to